everybody. So today we're going to talk some more about work in the natal chart. In the last video I did, I talked about career and like how you could find what career might be good for you or somebody else by way of the natal chart. And even that was not completely a comprehensive thing. There are other things that you want to take into account too when looking at things like career. And this is something else that you want to take into account, what I'm about to talk about, which is the 6th house. Now, why would you want to take the 6th house into account? The 6th house deals with the work that you do. It also deals with the environment that you work in, what might be best for you, what kind of environment you should work in, your coworkers, unequal relationships. A lot of times, you know, at work, relationships are not equal. You know, you'll have people above you, people below you, and a, you know, hierarchy of whatever. 6th house is also like mundane, daily, boring life. You know, the routine shit, the shit that happens all the time. The way that you need to function in daily life, or the way that best suits you to function in daily life. Those are all also 6th house things, but the work that you do is a big part of it. And obviously, if you have a career, right, the work that you do plays into this, to this too. Like, this is, you know, if it's your career, you're going to be working. So you want to look at the 6th house too, as well. So, and not just the 6th house, but also where the planetary ruler of the 6th house falls in the chart. This will also help to flesh the story out even further. The story of the person or the natal chart that you're looking at, whether that's yours or somebody else's. So let's say I'll use my chart again as an example because I have the clearance to use my chart without asking permission. So, okay, here we go. We have my 6th house is in Taurus, has Taurus on the cusp, and Venus, which is the planetary ruler of Taurus, falls in the 1st house in Sagittarius. Okay, so we'll start here first with just the 6th house and Taurus. So let me get the cards, because I like to show them off any chance I get. Okay, okay, so here's the 6th house card, and here is Taurus. So if you have somebody with Taurus on the cusp of the 6th house, you might be looking at somebody who looking at this strictly. I know the 6th house can be other things, but we're going to look at this strictly from the lens of work, the work that you do, the way you work, that kind of thing. So work for me needs to be done in a stable way, in a grounded way, in a pleasurable way, even. And this part is true for me anyway. There might be a slowness to the way that they work, or a steadiness, if you will, slow and steady. That is very true. I don't really like to be rushed in the work that I do. I don't. I give myself deadlines, right? I do give myself deadlines and I stick to them, but I like to give myself enough time within the deadline to where I can work in a slower way, so I don't miss anything. That's probably the Virgo midheaven not wanting to miss anything, but so you get the idea though. So if you have Taurus on the cusp of the 6th house, that is kind of how, since the sign is how one might work. And there are lots of other, like on the cards or even online, if you're looking stuff, you know, keywords up or things to fit in. You could use any of these keywords there for Taurus, whatever fits with the chart. I'm not saying just to pick some random ass keyword and make it fit, but you know, with the entire chart, taking the entire chart into account, pick the keywords that seem like they fit the best. Okay, so that is the way that I work. Some ways that I work. So from there, you would then want to look at Venus, because it's the planetary ruler of Taurus, in the first house in Sagittarius. Okay, so Venus is values, it is self-worth, it is love, it is beauty, it is harmony, all of these Venusian things. So the way that I work, the work that I do, will bend then to, or bend or bestow its power, or however you want to think about it, to Venus in the first house in Sagittarius. So this does in my case. If you're looking at somebody else's chart, this might, and it looks similar to mine, it might play out differently. But in my case, it, you know, values are important here. Like, the work that I do needs to bend to my self-worth, my self-value, because the first house deals with the self. And my beliefs and such. This is very this is very true for me. If I don't have some kind of belief, like value in the belief of what I'm doing, I generally don't want to do it. You know, I've had jobs before that I really, before my astrology business, I've had jobs before that I really believed in, and jobs that I didn't, and the jobs that I didn't, I fucking hated. I fucking hated. So this is very true for me. But you could make this go a lot of different ways. Depending on what the entire chart looked like. You would want to take the entire chart into account as you're doing this, along with, you know, whatever aspects Venus makes. Certainly would want to take that into account too. But this does help to flesh out the work that one does and what that will bend to. What other place in the chart that will bend to. And it'll just help to give more dimension to the natal chart and to the person, which I think is a really cool thing. Okay, so let's do another one. Okay, let's say instead of Venus being in the first, let's say it was in the 10th in Virgo. So that would make how the person works, right? Like in a grounded, stable, reliable, practical way. Bend to the value, let's say the value that they find through their career in, and this could be any sort of Virgo thing. This could be in analyzing, being analytical, in perfection, in proficiency, in specialization. So you know, that's another way to look at it. And I will say this also, I wanted to use the 10th house here because, okay, the work that you do, right, in daily life, if you have a career, right, if you have a career, those two do tend to tie together in some way. But if you have the ruler of the planetary ruler of the 6th house in the 10th, or the planetary ruler of the 10th house in the 6th, there is a direct tie-in between work and career, like a direct one. Sometimes that can make it easier to nail down a specific career. Not always, but sometimes it is. Just depends on the whole chart. But I have found that sometimes when you find those sorts of things going on, it does make it easier to nail down a specific career. And again, with this, you know, I mentioned it in the video about the midheaven. Themes are really the most important thing, I think, to take into consideration here, to look at the themes. I mean, if you notice that somebody seems like they would do great work as like a nurse, certainly throw that out there. I see no reason why you shouldn't, but I wouldn't focus so much on nailing down the exact type of work or career that they do. I would focus more on themes and throw those themes out there to them. If you want to try to nail down an exact work or career for them, you know, that's fine. But I would focus more on themes, because it's so hard to know every single sort of work environment or sort of career or what, you know, that's a hard thing to, nobody's going to know every single thing out there. Well, maybe some people do. I don't know. I don't. But I would throw out the themes more than I would be focused on, at least at first, throwing out the themes and then trying to nail something down from there. Oh, and also, I don't think I mentioned this in the midheaven video, but you also want to, like, okay, let's say, like in my chart's case, right? In the case of my chart, there's a whole bunch of shit going on in the first house, right? Like, I've got Uranus conjunct Venus, that's conjunct the galactic center, Saturn is conjunct that shit too. You know, there's a lot of shit going on in my first house. So, while you would certainly want to look at, you know, the 6th house bending to the 1st, right? And Venus in the 1st, as you get more comfortable doing this, you would also want to take into account like Uranus being there and Saturn being there. If you work with the galactic center being there, you know, you would want to bring all of those things into play. Same thing with, like, let's say I don't have the moon in Taurus, but let's say I had the moon in Taurus in the 6th house. That adds, you know, my emotions, my need for emotional stability in working or at work, will need to bend to then Venus in the 1st in Sagittarius. So you do want to take all of that into consideration, but I would first start with the way that I was doing it and then bring the other things in, or however, you know, you feel most comfortable doing it, do it that way. But that would be my advice when you're first starting to play with these, play around with them. But I do think that they are an important element to be incorporated. I'd love to, if you all are watching this and trying to do this with your own chart, I'd love to hear like what you find in your own chart, like what kind of work might be best for you. And then by, you know, the sign on the cusp of the 6th house, and then, you know, what house that disposes of itself to, or bends to, or bestows its power to, and how that might flesh out even further. Flesh that story out even further. I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on that on their own, or what have you. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Avaternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like or subscribe or whatever the fuck people do with videos on YouTube, you can find us by searching for Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you are already watching this on YouTube and you have not subscribed, you should. And like down below, whatever it looks like, hit it if you want to. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.